My boyfriend hung up on me for an employee. After I lost our child, he regretted it. The day Ethan proposed to me, I took the engagement ring he offered and threw it straight into the bay. Just because I didn't answer your call? He clenched the ring box, his brows furrowed. Yes. You always use breaking up to make me back down. How long will you keep this up this time? I ignored his sarcasm and let out a light laugh. 10 years, from passing notes in class to co-signing billion-dollar contracts. I stayed with him, from his cold, damp basement to his luxurious CEO office today. He had always assumed I'd never leave. But no one stays in the same place forever. Ethan, I'm going to fulfill the promise I once made to myself. And you, I don't want you anymore. 01 by the Bay, the extravagant proposal scene drew many tourists who stopped to watch. Grace, as night falls, I will propose to you in front of everyone in Capital City. Ethan, standing tall at 6 feet 1 inch, looked particularly handsome in his custom-tailored suit beneath the dim sunset. But he was no longer the carefree and uninhibited young man I remembered. I don't want to marry you anymore. Let's break up. Grace, in a moment, drones will form our names. I've asked the photographer to get a close-up. It'll definitely be front-page news tomorrow. He leaned against the railing, continuing his plans, automatically ignoring my words of. I laughed in exasperation. Ethan, what makes you think I'd want to marry you? After a brief silence, Ethan's suppressed, strange voice came through. Just because I didn't answer your call? He clenched the ring box, his brows tightly furrowed. My tone was firm, yes. Then, his voice suddenly softened. Grace, I was really in a meeting that day. I just missed a few calls. You don't have to crucify me over it, do you? I exhaled, then looked up, my expression calm. It doesn't matter anymore. Seeing that I wouldn't give him an out, Ethan's face grew increasingly sullen. We've been planning to get married all this time, and now that I've proposed, you don't want to marry me anymore? I scoffed, offering no further reply. Fine, then don't regret it. The lighter clicked crisply, and he lowered his head to light a cigarette. Looking at this stranger before me, I suddenly felt a pang of deep regret. If I hadn't gone to help him sign that client that day, would our child have been saved? The evening sea breeze swept across my face, and my throat tightened. Ethan, do you know why I called you a dozen times that day? He looked up, his eyes still bloodshot with impatience. Mr. Ethan, it really is you, a sickly sweet voice of a young woman cut in, breaking the awkwardness. Lily, why are you here? The fleeting surprise in Ethan's eyes pricked me like a needle. It turned out some people's eyes truly couldn't hide their favoritism. Wow, Mr. Ethan, are you proposing to Grace sis? She squinted, cupping her chin with both hands, her smile perfectly poised. How romantic. I'm so envious of Grace sis, to be loved so passionately by someone. The setting sun fell on her collagen-filled face, even the loose strands of hair by her ears sparkled. Anyone could see how young she was, and how innocently she could feign ignorance even when trying to steal what was mine. 02 Ethan's gaze shifted between Lily and me, then he awkwardly extinguished his cigarette. Lily seemed to just sense the tension in the air and rushed to smooth things over. Mr. Ethan, everyone in the company knows about your 10-year relationship with Grace sis, right? Now that you've reached such heights, and you're still as devoted to Grace sis as ever, there must just be some small misunderstanding, right? Grace sis, Mr. Ethan is just a complete blockhead. You've been together for so long, don't let a small misunderstanding ruin everything. Her words were like a soft barb, subtly challenging Ethan's composure. He indeed looked at me, the last bit of warmth in his eyes sinking. Gr. Ace, stop making a fuss. Their exchange made me laugh out loud. I slowly spoke. Ethan, you weren't in a meeting that day at all. You went to Whispering Resort with her, didn't you? His lie exposed, his utter discomfiture was laid bare on his face. His usual composure completely deserted him. Seeing him like that, I suddenly found it somewhat laughable. 10 years of a relationship, and I couldn't even get a decent truth out of him. Grace sis, you've really misunderstood Mr. Ethan. Lily's eyes brimmed with tears, her voice carrying just the right amount of grievance. That day I was in a terrible mood and accidentally broke several expensive tea sets at the company. Mr. Ethan was afraid I'd cause more trouble, so he took me to that new resort in the suburbs to clear my head. She paused, secretly glancing at Ethan, her eyelashes fluttering, sending a subtle signal for help, her voice softening further. He even told me then that the place had a wonderful environment, and he'd scout it out for you first, and after he was done with this busy period, he'd take you there. The last syllable stretched out, like an invisible string pulling Ethan into the lie she had spun. She even blinked quickly at him, her "please corroborate my story" look as innocent as a harmless bunny. Ethan's Adam's apple bobbed. His fingertips unconsciously traced the empty cigarette pack. He didn't immediately reply. Is that so? I tilted my head, looking at him. He looked slightly stunned. Yes. I laughed louder. Grace, you believe me now, don't you? Ethan still thought I'd fall for his clumsy act. So, employees can break company property if they're upset? And the boss doesn't pursue accountability but personally takes them out to unwind? I felt nothing but sarcasm. I never heard of such a humanitarian policy at the company I personally founded. Lily immediately bit her lower lip, her eyes red and on the verge of tears, looking as if she were about to cry. I'm sorry. She nervously clenched her skirt, her knuckles white. Please don't misunderstand Mr. Ethan because of me. You just like Ethan, so you play the damsel in distress to get his sympathy? I cut her off directly. No. Really, no. Grace sis, you've truly misunderstood. Lily's tears instantly flowed, streaming down her cheeks. Mr. Ethan and I are completely innocent. She sobbed, her voice trembling uncontrollably. I don't want to cause any friction between you two because of me. I'm sorry, I'll resign now. Ethan looked at her tear-streaked face, a flicker of undisguised heartache crossing his features. He quickly glanced at me, his tone full of blame. Enough. Take it out on me, don't keep harping on a few phone calls. She just graduated, what malicious intentions could she have? His words were like a blunt knife, dulling my ears. Do you think everyone is like you, always scheming? I stood rooted to the spot, completely stunned. So, in his eyes, the countless all-nighters I pulled for the company, every single document I painstakingly researched to secure projects, every strategy one devised to avoid competitors' traps, they were all proof of my scheming. I suddenly found myself unable to speak, only feeling that our 10-year relationship was like a shattered dream. Ultimately, it was a mistake to gamble my entire youth on a man's conscience. And as for a conscience, Ethan might have lost his a long time ago. Lily's faint, delicate sobs intertwined again. Ethan was flustered and fumbling, rummaging through his suit pockets. Finally, he pulled out a pack of tissues and awkwardly wiped Lily's tears. As his fingertips brushed her cheek, his movements held a tenderness he didn't even seem to notice. I suddenly felt it was all pointless, and turned to open the car door. The car door slammed shut with a bang, cutting off all sounds from behind me. The two figures in the rearview mirror grew smaller and smaller, until they became two blurry dots. When I reached up and lowered the car window, the sea breeze rushed in, stinging my eyes. It doesn't matter anymore, it really doesn't. Some people, once missed, are simply missed. Like that ring thrown into the ocean floor, no matter how bright it was, it couldn't be retrieved. 03 Back in my newly renovated apartment, I took a few photos. I sent them to my realtor's message, typing only one line, cash buyers preferred, and I'd offer a 2-point discount for a deal closed within a week. In the drawer of the entryway cabinet lay 2 thick renovation journals. The first page bore his handwriting, scrawled clumsily, Grace and I picked this place. It'll be our home now. Next to it was a clumsy smiley face. The last entry stopped 3 months ago. I remembered what I'd written. Today the window seat in the master bedroom was installed. He said he'd put thick cushions on it so we could sunbathe together in winter. I casually tossed the journal into the trash can, then turned and closed the door. My phone vibrated. When I answered, it was my assistant's urgent voice. Ms. Grace, Mr. Marcus from Innovate announced that if you don't come to the banquet, he won't sign the contract. Got it. I cut her off. Tell Marcus I'll be there in 20 minutes. As I approached the banquet hall, Mr. Marcus's liquor-laden voice crashed into me. Ethan, I just wanted your little secretary to have a drink with me, what's the big deal? Do you have to protect her like that? My gaze pierced through the bustling crowd, landing on Ethan. He stood sideways, shielding Lily. His suit cuff was a bit wrinkled, and his tone was one I hadn't heard from him in a long time, adamant. Lily is still a young girl, Mr. Marcus, don't make things difficult for her. Lily was half hidden behind him, her fingers tightly clutching the hem of Ethan's suit jacket. When her eyes timidly looked up, they met Mr. Marcus's gaze with a hint of pleading, making her look exactly like a startled fawn. Someone chuckled and said, Tea's just one drink, isn't it? Who hasn't had a few drinks for a contract when they first started at a company? Why is she so scared? Oh, she's pampered, unlike us who have to work hard on our own. Listening to the gossipy remarks from the onlookers, my heart tightened into a knot. 3 years ago, I wore a crisp beige suit and left our opponents speechless at the bidding meeting. When it was over, Ethan picked me up in a hug from behind, his laughter carried on the swirling wind. "My is truly amazing. That decisive and efficient drive is incredibly captivating." That day, he put a childish sticker on the passenger seat, "My woman." But now? The day Lily came for her job interview, her hands clutching her resume were trembling with nervousness. When asked about her career plans, her voice was as faint as a mosquito's buzz, and she ended up knocking over the glass on the corner of the table. When shattered porcelain flew, Ethan was the first to pull her out of the way. Later, he told me, "This girl seems naive, with no ill intentions. Let's keep her. Her timidity is just a lack of experience, she'll grow into it." Mr. Marcus's peripheral vision caught me, and a sly smile suddenly played on his lips. "Today, Innovate reputation rests on this drink. If she can't drink it, then you drink it for her." Surely, Ethan isn't that much of a coward? Ethan's brows furrowed sharply. Years of navigating the business world had taught him to weigh pros and cons, but Mr. Marcus's words were like a thorn, piercing him where it hurt most. He instinctively shielded Lily further, and as he touched her, he felt her shoulders tremble slightly. "Mr. Ethan, it's fine. I'll drink it myself. I'm here, don't be afraid," he murmured softly, soothing her. I stared at the glass of hard liquor in Mr. Marcus's hand, an unsettling feeling growing in my chest. When he signed his first deal years ago, a client forced Ethan to down a glass of liquor. Less than half an hour later, he collapsed at the table. When he was rushed to the hospital, the doctor yelled at me, holding a critical condition alert, "He has such a severe alcohol allergy, and he still dared to drink?" If you had been 10 minutes later, even a god couldn't save him. For 3 days and 3 nights, I waited outside the ICU, repeating prayers over and over in my heart. Now, Ethan was staring intently at that glass of liquor, as if weighing some enormous stakes. My breathing suddenly hitched, as if I could smell the hospital disinfectant from years ago, chilling my fingertips to numbness. "I'll drink it." 2 words crashed down, and he abruptly picked up the glass. The moment the glass touched his lips, I suddenly averted my gaze. Just one drink. Before, at business gatherings where people pressured him to drink, I could always smilingly deflect it for him. Either I'd drink myself into a stupor for him, or I'd find an excuse to pull him away early. Back then, he'd always clench my hand in the car on the way home, his voice hoarse, saying, "Grace, I'm sorry. I'll never let you suffer like this again." But now, he was tilting his head back, downing that potentially fatal drink for someone else. "Mr. Marcus, are you satisfied now? Next time we meet, don't make things difficult for Lily." Ethan placed the empty glass on the table. His neck was already flushed with an abnormal redness. His throat worked convulsively, yet he still managed to turn his head and force a reassuring smile at Lily. "Don't be afraid, it's over." Mr. Marcus laughed heartily, patting Ethan's back. "I didn't realize, Mr. Ethan, you're so good to your employees." The slap wasn't light, Ethan grunted, stumbling backward. Lily hastily steadied him. "Mr. Ethan." Her gasp held a hint of a sob. Mr. Marcus's gaze swept past Ethan, landing on me. His eyes held a hint of amusement, mixed with an indescribable curiosity, as if enjoying a show. He seemed to be waiting for my next move. I slowly stepped forward, completely ignore his gaze. As I passed Ethan, he happened to look up. Our eyes met, and a flicker of panic crossed his face, as if his secret had been exposed. "Grace." His voice was barely a whisper, light as a feather brushing against my heart. At the sound, I turned sharply, only to see Ethan collapsing backward. The redness around his white shirt collar had already spread behind his ears, and all color had drained from his face. 04 Lily's scream pierced the banquet hall's clamor, and Mr. Marcus's wine glass clattered to the floor. The mockery on his face had completely vanished, leaving only utter astonishment. The rash on Ethan's neck grew larger. Guests around us were alarmed, gathering in small groups. Mr. Marcus was sweating profusely, his mouth opening and closing, his throat working for a long moment before he managed to make a sound. "Call 911, I said." Mr. Marcus snapped back to reality, fumbling for his phone, his fingers trembling so much he misdialed the unlock password 3 times. I watched the medics lift the stretcher and move through the crowd, my feet rooted to the spot. It wasn't until Ethan was being carried away that his dangling hand swayed, revealing the faint scar on his wrist. It was as if something had violently clenched my heart, and my breath hitched. But that scar, left from saving me, was fading, like something losing its color. I reached up and pressed my chest. The throbbing pain hadn't subsided. Yet, I couldn't tell if it was for that scar, or for the man who once promised to protect me forever. I sharply averted my gaze, deliberately avoiding the familiar figure on the stretcher. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Lily in the car, her eyes red-rimmed. She leaned over the stretcher, her pale hands gently cradling Ethan's limp one. The ambulance door hissed shut. Mr. Marcus suddenly stood up, stepped forward, and pressed his hand against the edge of the door. He looked up, his voice cutting clearly through the crowd, hitting me squarely. "Get in." The two words landed with a thud, like a command, yet also a warning. My feet were rooted to the spot. I looked up sharply. Mr. Marcus's hand was still on the car door, his gaze sweeping over the crowd to land on me, with an air of complete understanding. As if to say, "Don't pretend, I can see the panic in your eyes." "No," I heard my own voice, very soft, yet steady as it carried over. "With Marcus and Lily, that's enough." I paused, then added, the end of my sentence a light sigh, "He'll be fine." It was as if I was convincing Mr. Marcus, and even more so, convincing myself. Mr. Marcus raised an eyebrow, but didn't insist, merely loosening his hand on the car door. The ambulance door finally clicked shut, muffling Lily's suppressed sobs inside, and cutting off my last glimpse of the stretcher. After 10 years together, Ethan's every habit was etched into my very being. I knew better than anyone that this drink wouldn't kill Ethan, but it would be enough to keep him unconscious in a hospital bed for 3 to 5 days. My chest felt as if something was pressing against it, a dull ache rising in waves. I watched the ambulance's taillights disappear around the street corner. My fingers curled and uncurled, but in the end, I suppressed the urge to follow. Some lingering feelings were real, those shared meager meals, the sleepless nights we'd spent together, the renovation plans we'd drawn in our first apartment, none of them were things you could simply forget. But more clarity was also real. Once a rift forms between people, they can never truly get close again. How many more 10-year periods do I have? While he was unconscious these few days, I had to clear everything out. My phone vibrated in my pocket. It was a message from my realtor, Ms. Grace. The client said they can sign the contract now. Cash payment will clear quickly. I took a deep breath and replied, "Okay." Let those unspoken attachments vanish with the wail of the ambulance siren, disappearing in to the night. 05 After signing the contract, the restlessness I felt slowly subsided as the deposit notification popped up. Combined with my company shares, this money was enough for me to do many things. For example, to fulfill that promise from my youth. I opened my private photo album and deleted my most prized work, a painting of Ethan, gilded by the sunlight. Then I opened my flight booking app and typed Sedona into the search bar. From the flight information that appeared, I chose the early morning flight 5 days from now. My phone popped up a weather forecast. Sedona would be sunny for the next 5 days. Go to a place with wind and open an art studio. Paint the snow on thunder, the moon over lake, the first ray of sunlight falling on my easel when I open the window in the morning. And never again paint someone's eyelashes. Ethan is no longer in critical condition. My phone vibrated, displaying an unfamiliar text message. Before I could open it, another photo popped up on the screen the next second. It was Lily, leaning over the hospital bed, her cheek pressed against Ethan's hand, her eyes red-rimmed. Ethan lay there, pale and unconscious. I stared blankly at the photo, my heart clenched by an invisible hand. Just as I pressed the delete button, my phone suddenly vibrated wildly. The caller ID was Ethan's number. The moment I slid to answer, Lily's tearful voice cut in first. "Grace sis, Mr. Ethan just woke up calling your name, but he's still running a fever and insists on checking out to find you. Can you please put him on the phone?" I cut her off. There was a rustle in the receiver, and finally Ethan's voice came through, sounding incredibly weak. "Grace, are you still angry? Congratulations, you cheated death." I clenched the phone, but also quietly breathed a sigh of relief. "Anything else? If not, I'm hanging up." "Don't hang up." He coughed anxiously, his breathing ragged. "Grace, can you come to the hospital to see me, just for a moment?" His voice softened, laced with pleading. "Can we talk face to face?" It's been 10 years, you can't deny me even a chance to explain. Just as I was about to press the hang-up button, Lily's panicked scream suddenly came from the receiver. Ah. Mr. Ethan, what are you doing? The 4-line. Then came Ethan's stubborn and urgent voice. Grace, if you don't come, I'll come find you right now. Wait there, I'll be at the hospital in 20 minutes. In the VIP hospital room. Ethan leaned weakly against the hospital bed. Lily held his hand, blinking her tearful, pitiful eyes. Tears clung to her eyelashes as she stared at him, glistening. Mr. Ethan, it's all my fault. If I hadn't been so clumsy, unable to speak up, unable to stop Mr. Marcus from drinking, you wouldn't have. She sniffled, and a tear splashed onto his hand. Grace sis already refused your proposal because you took me out to unwind. Now she sees you in the hospital because of me, she'll definitely misunderstand even more. It's all my fault, I can't even refuse people. Nonsense. Ethan rebuked her softly, though his tone was as soft as cotton. He lifted his free hand and awkwardly wiped her tears. As his fingertips brushed her cheek, his movements held a tenderness he didn't even seem to notice. It's not your fault. You're simple-minded. Workplace deceit like drinking and schmoozing shouldn't involve you anyway. Lily blinked, and tears welled up again. But sis, will she think you're playing favorites with me? Ethan said calmly, don't worry, we have 10 years of history. She's not the type to be petty. Besides, I'm your boss. Protecting my employee is only natural, isn't it? As he spoke, he gently tapped her nose like one would a child, his eyes filled with adoration. Lily's face flushed crimson. She lowered her head and mumbled softly, but I'm still scared Grace sis will hate me. She won't, Ethan said with certainty. I stopped, standing outside the hospital room, quietly watching the scene. Since you're here, why don't you go in? Mr. Marcus's voice suddenly sounded behind me. 06. The air instantly froze. Ethan's head shot up, a flicker of panic in his eyes, his hand still lingering on Lily's cheek. Mr. Ethan, Grace sis is here to see you. Am I bothering you too much? I'll go out first. Lily was like a startled rabbit, her eyes already brimming with tears as she looked up. She said she was about to get up, but her movements were unsteady, as if she couldn't keep her balance, and she slumped back onto the hospital bed. Ethan's hand remained entwined with hers, his gaze darting between my face and Lily's red-rimmed eyes. Finally, he withdrew his hand, only murmuring, then you go back and rest well. You've been up for days. Lily softly hummed, and tears finally streamed down her cheeks. She steadied herself against the wall, her steps unsteady as she moved towards the door. Ethan's gaze indeed lingered on Lily, his eyes showing obvious concern. It wasn't until her figure disappeared down the hallway that he slowly withdrew his gaze. My heart felt as if it was being repeatedly cut by a blunt knife, the pain making it almost impossible to breathe. I took a deep breath and slowly walked into the hospital room. Mr. Marcus followed behind, his arms crossed over his chest, his gaze sweeping over Ethan, a faint, almost imperceptible chill lingering at the corners of his lips. Grace, don't be angry anymore. Ethan struggled to sit up straighter. Once I'm discharged, I'll definitely give you another proposal, even grander than the last one at the Bay. As he spoke, he reached out his free hand, extending it towards me. I slightly turned, avoiding his touch. I'm not angry. You should focus on recovering, I said calmly. Ethan paused, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Then, as if remembering something, he pulled a velvet ring box from under his pillow. Grace, I had this custom made overnight by a designer. It's one of a kind, engraved with our initials. He held the ring box out, his eyes practically overflowing with anticipation. See? I know I was wrong. Can we please stop this nonsense? Before I could refuse, he suddenly grabbed my wrist. Before I could pull away, a cold ring was forcibly slipped onto my middle finger, and the fit was surprisingly perfect. Now you can't run away, Ethan said, looking at the ring firmly set on my finger, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. A weak but satisfied smile appeared on his lips. Grace, let's not break up, okay? I lowered my gaze to the diamond ring and forced a cold smile. Someone's fainted. Get a stretcher quickly. The shouts exploding in the hallway, mixed with chaotic footsteps, crashed into the hospital room like thunder. Ethan's brows instantly knitted together. Almost instinctively, he ripped out the 4-line from the back of his hand. Blood instantly gushed from the needle prick on the back of his hand, streaming down between his fingers, yet he seemed oblivious, rushing towards the door barefoot. Ethan. As if challenging myself, my voice suddenly rose, carrying a tremble I didn't even notice. If you walk out that door, you've made your choice. His back, rushing towards the door, suddenly froze, as if he'd been nailed to the spot. 3 seconds later, he slowly turned around. The eyes that once held such tenderness were now covered with a layer of ice, making him terrifyingly unfamiliar. Grace, what time is it now? His voice carried a deliberate mockery. People's lives are at stake, and you're still here bickering with me? My whole body stiffened, looking at the undisguised disgust in his eyes. Get out. The single word was forced out through clenched teeth, yet it took all my strength. 07 After liquidating my shares, I finally realized my long-held dream. His cold gaze kept replaying in my mind that day. I left without a second glance. The art studio by Lake wasn't large, but it was cozy and held so many of my P.E.S. For 10 years, I'd rushed around for the company, exhausting my passion and energy. My paintbrush suddenly dropped. At that moment, I felt a sense of wistful loss. I suddenly remembered my graduation year, when the old professor from my department clutched my portfolio, his eyes gleaming like hidden stars. Grace, you are the most naturally gifted student I've ever taught. Stay here, I'll mentor you personally, and within 3 years, I guarantee you'll establish yourself in the art world. At that time, I shook my head sharply, my fingers clutching the message Ethan had just sent. Grace, our company is registered. Let's start this business together, and once we make money, we'll get married. I can't wait to marry you and bring you home. Later, one late night, Ethan found my crumpled acceptance letter to the university, which I'd thrown in the trash can. He squatted down and carefully smoothed it out, looking up with eyes filled with remorse. I'm sorry, Grace, I've put you through so much. When the company makes money, I'll definitely get you the biggest art studio, with floor-to-ceiling windows on all 4 sides, so you can paint from morning till night. His fingers gently stroked my hair, as if soothing a rare treasure. But what happened later? The company grew larger and larger, the numbers in our account doubling and tripling, enough to buy hundreds of studios with floor-to-ceiling windows. But he never mentioned that promise again. In fact, if I occasionally picked up my art supplies, he'd frown and say, "The paint smells too strong, don't bother with it." Grace, what are you doing here? A voice pierced the studio's tranquility. I looked up, meeting Ethan's bloodshot eyes. The man who always prided himself on his meticulous appearance now had a suit as wrinkled as crumpled paper. His tie was askew around his neck, his hair falling messily across his forehead, his entire being exuding a crumbling disarray. I've been looking for you for half a month. No calls, no messages. How long are you going to hide? His voice was laced with suppressed anger. Grace, haven't you had enough of this Cold War? Even if you're not tired, I am. I lowered my eyes, my hand holding the paintbrush unmoving, as I made the final stroke on the canvas titled Rebirth. I've explained countless times, the truth is exactly as I said that day. His voice gradually rose, tinged with ignored irritation. Lily and I are completely innocent. Do you have to keep harping on unsubstantiated rumors? What exactly do I have to do for you to forgive me? He stepped closer. Seeing that I remained unmoved, his pent-up emotions finally exploded. He suddenly raised his hand and violently overturned my easel. The easel crashed to the floor with a bang, making my eardrums throb. Enough. I slowly stood up, my voice surprisingly calm. Ethan, we've already broken up. From now on, don't disturb me again. His eyes were bloodshot as he glared, filled with surging disappointment and fury, as if he'd been gravely wronged. Just because I didn't answer that one call of yours that day? You've been carrying on like this ever since. Grace, when did you become so petty? Looking at his self-righteous expression, I suddenly found it somewhat laughable and also a little helpless. Did he truly not understand, or was he just feigning ignorance? Ethan, I took a breath and slowly said, what I didn't finish saying that day was, we once had a child. The color instantly drained from his face, as if all strength had been sucked out of him. His brows were tightly knitted, his lips moved several times, but no sound came out. When? The day I went to Innovate to discuss the partnership, my voice was very soft, but every word was clear. I was in a car accident. When I was taken to the hospital, the doctor told me I was 3 months pregnant. These words floated into the air like feathers. But only I knew that with every word, my heart felt like it was being gouged out by a blunt knife, the pain making it almost impossible to breathe. Each desperate phone call, each instance of his wavering, now turned into a cold tide, completely engulfing both of us. 08 He staggered forward, clutching my hand tightly. Looking at me, his eyes surged with remorse. Grace, we'll have more children. I promise. I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I took a deep breath and pulled my hands free from his grasp. No need. I swiped on my phone, finally opening that photo. When I held it up to him, the color drained from his face at a visible rate. It's not what you think. Grace, let me explain. He tried desperately to defend himself, but only strained gasps escaped. In the photo, the hot spring bubbled with misty steam. Lily wore a sexy bikini. Half her body was submerged in the water, the cleavage at her neckline was dazzling. And, wearing a robe, stood just 2 steps away on the shore. His gaze, however, seemed magnetically drawn to her, fixed intently, holding a hidden indulgence and favoritism. This photo, I tugged at the corner of my mouth, but the smile didn't reach my eyes, my jaw ached from the effort. Lily herself sent it to me that day. The caption was, "Ethan will be mine sooner or later." My voice wasn't loud, but every word was like a knife. Ethan, your heart is no longer completely mine. I'm sorry. The atmosphere remained silent for a long time. His apple bobbed for what felt like ages before he finally squeezed out those 3 words. If only I had asked one more question that day. His shoulders trembled. I shouldn't have believed her lies about depression acting up, and I shouldn't have let you go sign the contract alone. Grace, I'm truly sorry. He tentatively stepped forward, but I turned sideways, avoiding him. I don't blame you anymore, Ethan. For these 10 years, I turned down my professor's offer, gave up painting, worked tirelessly to manage the company for you, and even became a shadow of your self. Now I want to find myself again, and you're no longer in my future. His shoulders suddenly slumped, as if all his bones had been pulled out. Grace, I was wrong. I was truly wrong. He reached to touch the hem of my clothes, then recoiled as if electrocuted. 10 years, we went from school uniforms to business suits. How can you just let go like that? He looked up, his eyes filled with pain and remorse. I picked up the easel he had overturned in his moment of distress. I hope you do well from now on, and please don't disturb me again. He stumbled backward, shaking his head, the light in his eyes slowly dimming. Grace, just one more chance, just one, okay? His tone was almost pleading, his voice trembling. I didn't answer, just clutched my easel and walked out the door. He stood there, watching me, unmoving, until the sunset flooded the studio, finally realizing I wouldn't be coming back. The next day, as I was cleaning the studio, I found a card and a few lines of text on the table. Grace, I'm sorry. Let's give each other some time. I believe you'll miss me too. When we meet again, can we embrace anew? Tears unexpectedly fell onto the note, spreading into a large stain. 10 years, wasn't it also a source of profound regret for me? Ethan, I don't blame you anymore. You were very good to me before, but belated realization and amends are futile. Let this separation teach you about love and cherishing. Thank you for watching today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share it with your friends. We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section. Feel free to share your views, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing stories. See you next time.